Here in Bel Air, if you were watching or if you saw my previous series on building Record Mill, here's Record Mill temporarily installed where it's going to reside. One of the things that I realized when I first I took the floor footprint of this and I set it here in Bel Air just to make sure it was going to fit. And then once I got built, I didn't realize that you had this overhang, this roof overhang, that actually was then overhanging the original edge of the benchwork. So I just had to extend the benchwork out about an inch, just to use a piece of 1-inch foam, pushed up against there, put the fascia on, added a bunch of Woodland Scenic Smooth It there to give me, that'll be the road where the trucks will drive in. Right here, they'll drive in, they'll dump their grain, and then drive out the other way. So I put the Smooth It there to give me a semi-smooth road surface and also to try to level out the area where the mill is going. So that's obviously still got to get sanded and weathered and painted and all that good stuff. But that's where Record Mill is going to live. There's also a piece of polycarbonate that I've cut and is screwed on there. It's removed right now while I'm doing the base there. But I realized I was going to need that because no sooner had I set that building there and then I had turned around over here to the right of this is Towson. I was doing something and I swung my elbow back and knocked into the building. So I realized I'm going to have to put a piece of polycarbonate there. So it's cut. It's already been screwed on. It's just removed right now. So that's where we are with the Record Mill in Bel Air. After that, I still have to get to my project of the streets here. I'm pretty much happy with the layout in general of the downtown area of Bel Air. Up there on the hill in the back, that's still, I am going to have the road go up the hill to that buildings there in the back corner. I've got that stone wall that I created out of foam. Those buildings back there are just temporary. I don't know what I'm going to actually do there, but so I still need to get to putting the streets and sidewalk in permanently here in downtown Bel Air. So that's a project for an upcoming video. Here on the peninsula between Bel Air and Forest Hill, I finally got around to installing this polycarbonate to protect these trees. I've had the trees here and here busted off I don't know how many times by myself as well as operators during an operating session. I've had this polycarbonate forever. I just finally got around to cutting it. I think I'm going to need to actually take it back off and cut those corners down at some kind of an angle to make the corners themselves a little bit of angle. I think that will work out better. Maybe, hopefully be a little less likely to catch on a shirt sleeve going by than the sharp corners are. But I got those installed finally. I've done some work on the fascia. You can see right here, this cut this out finally for the dry gulch there. I may still at some point put some water in there, maybe change that up a little bit. That was just a project I did very early on just to try my hand at getting that bridge in there. So we may make some changes there and turn that into a flowing river, maybe not a raging river, but something. But you can also see that the fascia, I've continued it around. The piece that you can see there, right there, still needs to be cut level with the edge of the scenery, but I'm not sure what I'm doing there down on the far end where you can, if I zoom in, maybe you'll be able to see here, down here, the hill right now just kind of rolls off, and so I'm not sure if I'm going to cut the fascia down or if I'm going to continue a hill out towards the end of that. So I just left that there for now, but I cut that piece, got it in. The next piece underneath the drill had to be added. Obviously I had to get a new piece for that fascia down there underneath Record Mill. So now I have fascia that's continuous all the way from the staging yard through Baltimore, Towson, Bel Air, and Forest Hill. So then beyond that there's no fascia. Well, there's only one piece of fascia installed, so that's another project for another day. And the last thing I did related to the fascia is you can see this piece here on the left end of the York Station PRR interchange section. There was no fascia there, so I cut a piece to fit in there, mounted it, and then the button there to control the turnout coming out of the station. You can also see here this track here in the back is where the mail car gets stored when it comes into York. And then there's a clip there on the fascia for the car card for the mail car, and I've got those in all 4 locations where the mail cars end up: Baltimore, York, Whiteford, Red Lion. So that was a little bit of improvement than just leaning the car cart against the car in Whiteford and Red Lion. So that was the last piece of fascia work that I got done. Here in Forest Hill, on the right here, you can see Barrett's Fix-It shop, which I made a video on and put that in. I still need to do some detailing around that, but then there needs to be detailing all over the place on the layout. But the one thing I wanted to highlight here that's been added since is here at the end. You can see that little bit of concrete sidewalk with the fire hydrant and the smashed up barrel. That's been added in. So now Forest Hill is quote unquote complete. However, the station, I'm sorry for the pan there, the station is still just a laser cut mock-up. It's not 100% right, so the station still needs to get built. I was thinking about just using the station as is and putting some cedar shake shingles siding on the existing building. That's what the actual prototype station had for on the exterior of the walls. The roof is completely wrong in this format, so I thought, well, maybe I would just then subsequently scratch build the roof. But obviously there's a lot of things that need to be improved on this building, so I think at some point I will just cut a new building, put the shakes on the side, and then with a proper roof. So that's really the last remaining thing to complete in Forest Hill, beyond other details, obviously. Here in Baltimore, I made a change to this track on the front here that runs to the coal trestle. Originally, that turnout was pretty much like right here, and the track just came up here. And the reason that I did that was, if you take a look at a photo of York B Yard, I've got a good photo that shows the coal trestle. I'll put it here somewhere, pop it up, to show how that coal trestle actually worked. And so I want to do something similar to that as best I can, which will involve cutting down, cutting out the homosote, the plywood, cutting the fascia down, because the coal track came here, and then ground level was whatever, 12 feet below that, and that's where the coal dumped in, and the trucks would come in and pick the coal up. So I want to try and replicate that scene to some extent. So that's why I made the change and moved that turnout. And looking at York Yard from the south end, and looking at the ladder here, if you can, I don't know how well I can get this in from this angle, but basically right here where you have this ladder in the real York Yard B, again I will pop up an image to show you, there was a 3-way turnout right there. So I acquired this turnout from on eBay. I'm looking to see in a future project how I can implement this to make the yard layout a little more prototypical. The yard is reasonably correct in terms of the prototype. It's not quite as long, but and obviously the industries had to be modified a little bit. But conceptually, I think that the York Yard, the York Industries, the York Station, all has some vaguely prototypical basis. So I'd like to put this 3-way switch in and make the yard look a little bit more like the actual yard did. So we'll have to see how that ends up working out. Over here in Baltimore at the station, that building there on the right there is the current stand-in for Baltimore Station on the layout. During an ops session, we run 6 passenger trains, 3 in each direction from York to Baltimore, Baltimore to York. The passenger train consists of these 2 passenger cars, or the equivalent ones that are sitting in York at the moment. Here in Baltimore, I really didn't have any place to put those, and so what would happen is the crews would end up taking the cars when they were done, when they arrived at Baltimore, and they come down here into the staging yard and just drop them there, run the locomotive around, and come back here and put it in the engine facility. So I decided that I would just add a passenger car track here in Baltimore, so at the end, after the train makes its station stop to let the passengers off, unload the baggage, it will then make a runaround move via the staging yard and then put the passenger cars here. There's also, if you can see that little black building, let me see if I can get a better pointer here. If you can see that little black building right there, that's a stand-in for some kind of a mail facility, U.S. Postal Service. That's where the mail car, there's a mail car that sits in Red Lion and one that sits in Whiteford that are picked up by the north and southbound morning passenger trains and brought into the station. That's to simulate this idea that there's a lot of mail. Those are two large cities generating a lot of mail. So the last train, passenger train each session, drops the car off there to be loaded overnight, and then in the morning it's picked up and is taken to its destination. So this is where that car will end up when it comes to Baltimore, and then the last train will pick it up from there along with the passenger cars and take it back and drop it off. In this case, they drop off at Whiteford. The southbound train drops off at Red Lion. So I've got that cut in. First operating session was last Friday after doing this, or 2 Fridays ago, and found out that I forgot to put drops there, so there was no power. So I had to end up putting some drops there. So just a reminder, when you put in a new track, make sure you add feeders.